What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back with the review that you've all been waiting for. I'm going to be talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a movie which feels less like a movie that you get to kind of discuss and talk about what you liked and disliked, and it feels more just like this soulless, empty studio product that like Sony has the rights to Ghostbusters. So obviously they're going to keep making Ghostbusters movies until idiots like myself stop showing up. But this is more franchise custodianship, franchise management. This is not filmmaking. And I hope everybody involved got extremely well paid, because a lot of the cast are people that I've been admiring and enjoying for many decades. Even some members of the young cast I kind of like. Young McKenna Grace. I said it before when I didn't even review Afterlife because I hated it so much. But at least at the time I was thinking, at least McKenna Grace has some charm, has some chops. And I think the same still holds true here, where she has this kind of cool, effortless charm, but she's an actress in search of better material, of a better franchise, and obviously she's blessed to have the opportunity to be the star of Ghostbusters these days, but she's an actress who deserves better scripts, because this script is so generic and so by the numbers, where you can just see like the meeting taking place around the conference room, like, we want to turn Ghostbusters into a family-friendly Avengers franchise. But by the end of this movie, an ending which includes a fucking beam going into the sky. Can we retire the giant beam going into the sky? Whether it's Josh Trank's abysmal Fantastic Four movie or a good superhero movie like Avengers, the fucking beam going up into the top of the sky, it's got to go. It's been used 1,000 times at this point. We're all fucking tired of it, but you can just see this movie like visibly straining to try to become something that it's not. And what is Ghostbusters? Well, Ghostbusters to me was a comedy that I really enjoyed at age 8, which had a lot of humor which I didn't understand. But the fact that it didn't have jokes for me or even characters my age was no impediment. I mean, I was in a row of kids. We were all laughing and giggling. And over the years, as I kept revisiting the movie, some of the jokes started to make more sense. And whether those jokes involve Egon crawling up from underneath a desk in a very sexually suggestive way,
You're very handy, I can tell.
or Bill Murray hanging out with Sigourney Weaver, she's like, I want you inside me, and all this stuff. Like, I had no idea what was going on. Or even something as blatant and as obvious as Dan Aykroyd getting his zipper undone or unzipped in a dream by a ghost as he proceeds to get oral sex from the supernatural. Age 8, no one had told me what a blowjob was. So I was like, all right, so he must be really happy to be spending time with that ghost. And I feel like that was part of the magic of the first one, where the adults could enjoy it and the kids could enjoy it, and there wasn't any sort of like tonal clash. This is a franchise or a movie now where you can tell, like, it just needs to continue to exist, because otherwise investors or whoever's like bankrolling Sony Pictures, like, they'll get mad if we're not at least making the effort. But once again, unless you send the message loud and clear, like, thanks but no thanks, like, what I would rather see is, instead of spending $200 million on Frozen Empire, or 100, I don't know what the budget was, but somewhere probably between 1 and 200 million, maybe go out and make 10 movies that might be the next Ghostbusters. Like, learn your lessons from Ghostbusters. Like, they love the characters, they love the humor, they love the tone, they love the concept. Roll the goddamn dice and try to build some new fucking franchises, Sony. Because if there's any studio on the planet that knows the perils, the dangers of trying to imitate Marvel, it is Sony. They just released Madam Web, and we still have friggin' Kraven and Venom 3 coming later this year. And just in case anybody at Sony is listening, or anybody at Marvel is listening, it's over. Like, your golden age is over. Superheroes are in decline. Don't chase that format. Don't chase that model of storytelling. Invent a new one. Invent something fresh and exciting. Something as fresh as Ghostbusters was in 1984, or as fresh as Marvel was in 2012 when Avengers took the world by storm. Like, that's what you want. And obviously, easier said than done. If it were that easy, everybody would do it. So I get why they're trying to go this route. But there's a point at the end of the movie where there were like 11 or 12 people, and they're all carrying proton packs, and it's like, they get a word, they get to pull a switch, it's like, y'all have way too many goddamn characters that are all basically serving the same function. Cut your cast in half, make them real, make them believable, make them humorous, give them some heart. But yeah, they tried to overstuff this movie with a little bit of everything that you might have liked from Afterlife and that you definitely liked from the first Ghostbusters, and I just don't think that any of it worked. The one beat in the entire movie that worked was when the young McKenna Grace did that classic move she can do, where she's able to wink with one eye without any sort of strain on her face. And she did it to Paul Rudd in the classroom in the Afterlife. And she does it here after telling a joke to Finn Wolfhard. And poor Finn Wolfhard, at one point he was probably like, "Oh my God, like I'm a young movie star. I'm getting to be in these franchises like Stranger Things and Ghostbusters." This poor kid. They gave him like 3 things to do, but nobody in this cast really has a lot to do. Like Carrie Coon, she gets to be the disapproving mother from time to time. I mean, I have a huge crush on Carrie Coon, but even my love and affection for Carrie Coon was not enough for me to take an interest in her character of Callie Spengler. Paul Rudd, I mean, you can tell he's like, how much charm do I need to try to exude in order to artificially buoy this movie up into the realm where it's like considered watchable entertainment? And speaking of artificial charm, nothing makes your movie feel less cool than hearing guys in their 40s and 50s saying how cool it is. Like Paul Rudd does it, Patton Oswalt does it. It's like, stop saying how cool this is.
So cool.
No one had to tell me that Ghostbusters from 1984 was cool. It was self-evident. Like, no one had to tell Miles Davis he was cool. It was self-evident.
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
If something's cool, we'll know. Like, we don't need Patton Oswalt to feign youthful enthusiasm where there is no youthful enthusiasm that is justified. This is a movie that's simultaneously wallowing in the most like nauseating form of nostalgia imaginable, while at the same time not taking a single risk, not introducing a single new idea. This is just a bunch of familiar tropes that we've seen a million times, just recycled with a very thin, fresh new coat of paint. And I like to have a little contest. Like, can anybody who pretends to like these new movies name all the characters who are at the core of the story? Because we've got Logan Kim playing Podcast. He's worthless. We've got Celeste O'Connor playing Lucky. She's worthless. Who else is in here? Well, I already mentioned Patton Oswalt. Kamal Nanjiani playing Nadim. They're trying to make him the new Rick Moranis unsuccessfully, and he is a funny dude under the right circumstances, like Silicon Valley. He is about as funny as a fart in an elevator. Actually, that can be kind of funny. I don't pick your metaphor or comparison of choice, but he's not funny in this. The movie's just not funny. Like I can vividly recall 1984, just wall-to-wall laughter and joy in the theater. People losing their minds. Today, the one time I heard a kind of mirthless, like forced chuckle from one person in the theater, it happened one time the whole movie, was when Paul Rudd's using the lyrics from the original Ghostbusters song as dialogue, and Carrie Coon's like telling them to be quiet, but one person was like, ha ha ha, I got that joke, I understood that reference. It's not a comedy. You can't call yourself a comedy if there are no jokes. So you might be asking yourself, who is responsible for this abysmal creative misfire? And I'm probably overstating the case just because I hate this form of filmmaking where you take something that used to be cool and turn it into something that is not. And we've seen it with so many franchises where there are now more examples of franchise not being cool than being cool, like Star Wars. There's a lot of Star Wars content out there now. Precious little of it is fun to watch. Star Trek, if they keep going, they're going to get to that point where there's going to be more hours of shitty Star Trek than good Star Trek. But there are a lot of hours of good Star Trek, so it's not quite there yet. Or if Amazon keeps going with their Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power show, like we will get to a point where there are more hours of bad Lord of the Rings than good Lord of the Rings. And with Ghostbusters, Jesus Christ, yeah, we already crossed that threshold a while back. But Gil Kenan, the director, the only thing I knew of him or knew him from, he was one of the writers on Afterlife, which I did not like, and he directed the remake of Poltergeist in 2015. I mean, if there's any offense, like creatively or artistically, where I feel like you deserve to like have your fingers hacked off and like your eyes put out with hot pokers and like, you know, being like slowly boiled over a fire until you're just screaming in agony for all time. It's remaking stuff that used to be cool. Don't remake Poltergeist. Don't remake RoboCop. Don't remake friggin' Total Recall. Don't remake anything. Take inspiration from the shit that used to be cool and make your own goddamn thing. But that obviously is the last thing that is on the agenda over at Sony. But let's spread the blame around a little bit. We also have Jason Reitman, a filmmaker I despise, as well as Gil Kenan sharing the writing duties. And Jason Reitman, man, there was a time where I thought he was going to be like the next big thing. Like around like 2006 or 2007 when he did Thank You for Smoking and then Juno. I was like, whoa, this dude's got chops. He's going to be kicking some butt. Like, what will the future hold for the great Jason Reitman? And it's nothing but thunderous mediocrity. And I remember like feeling like the warning signs when I saw Up in the Air, and it started to feel like it had the tone and the atmosphere of a storyteller who has a tube going from their ass right to their nose so they can just smell their farts all goddamn day. And then from that point on, he proceeded to make just one terrible movie after another. And some of the examples would include Men, Women, and Children from 2014, easily one of the worst movies of the last 10 years. And if you really want to inflict some misery and suffering on yourself, check out Men, Women, and Children. I highly recommend just the shock and awe of just how horrible that movie is. He also obviously directed Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I just think is a thunderously mediocre movie as well. Thunderously mediocre is the phrase for all this stuff, because it's not like Madam Web bad where it's like easy to ridicule or gonna like have a bunch of lines which people turn into memes and that sort of thing. It all just feels so boring, and the actors feel bored as well. And there's some scenes in this movie where the original cast from 1984, where they'll be sharing the screen at the same time, and you can almost kind of like see them like thinking the thoughts like, how much am I getting paid for this shit? Like, oh my God, like why are we even here? The screenplay's terrible. But I'm glad. I hope Bill Murray got to take a very nice golf trip after agreeing to do this movie. Bill Murray loves golf. That is what gives him pleasure in life. And for people who like golf, they like to travel to cool golf courses and buy new golf clubs and play golf. So anyway, Bill Murray, I hope that you've got 100 great golf trips planned as a result of this movie. But every single actor in this movie seems to be suffering from a mixture of boredom and embarrassment that they're actually in this movie. And I was suffering from boredom and embarrassment just from watching it. And maybe I was already conditioned to kind of have a negative response because I spent most of the morning watching the remake of Roadhouse, yet another failed attempt at resurrecting not even an old franchise. Just it's a remake of a 1989 movie, but. Am I alone in saying that I'm tired of 80s nostalgia? I lived through the 80s. You know, I like the movies, I like the music, I like a lot of the books and that sort of thing. But like the 2020s, we're 4 years deep into it. The 2020s deserve to be their own decade with their own flavor and their own stories. And having Patton Oswalt with his gray hair showing, I'm like, oh my God, it's just so cool. It's like, no, it isn't. It's fucking lame as shit. But let me start wrapping this video up because I still have to review Roadhouse, which is not a prospect which gives me any joy whatsoever. But there are few modern trends in filmmaking that I detest more than taking cool old movies, exciting old movies, funny old movies, and trying to turn them into boring, safe, family-friendly brands. The notion of safety, so many people are so preoccupied with it where like they want safety in their entertainment, they want safety in their lives. All they think about is safety all day, every day. It was even like the dramatic climax of that new show, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where we learned the hero of the movie or the hero of the show just wants to feel safe. Well, nothing is more boring in entertainment than safety. I like risk. I like excitement. I like danger. I like something to fucking happen. Nothing happens in this movie that you can't see coming, 30 minutes ahead of time. It is a very safe, family-friendly movie. It is boring as fucking hell. And I don't know what it's going to take to kind of reverse this trend where people will try to take things like Ian Fleming and James Bond novels and turn them into something that they're not, or turn Ghostbusters into something that it's not. If a book or an old movie or a game or whatever is not what you want it to be, make something new. Let Ghostbusters be Ghostbusters. Let James Bond be James Bond. And if those are not satisfying to your criteria or your needs, find another story or write one from scratch. But this is now a sad, pathetic series of movies for middle-aged dorks. And admittedly, I'm a middle-aged guy who goes to see a lot of movies. I probably qualify as a middle-aged dork. And as you can see here, I even visited the famous location for the film in my little video, The Movies That Define New York Part 1. But if you're a teenager and you're pretending to be excited for this, like, I can't even imagine being like an 18 or 19-year-old kid being excited for a movie that's wallowing in nostalgia from something that happened 40 years ago without even trying to recapture the tone and the flavor of what made it cool in the first place. And that's what's so disgusting, is seeing people talking themselves into thinking, oh, it's still good, it's still good. I remember when Dial of Destiny came out last summer, like, you're on the wrong end of this fight, man, or the wrong side of this fight, man. Like, it's good. It's like, no, it isn't. No matter how many times you talk yourself into thinking that it's something special, it's not. Like, if it's special, going back to the whole notion of being cool, it will be self-evident. 40 years from now, no one's going to be talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. No one's going to be talking about it in 40 days except for as a cautionary tale about how not to manage your franchises. And if this movie ends up making piles of money, I'm just going to fucking kill myself on my box office breakdown this weekend, because the prospect of this movie being a hit fills me with just depression. It makes me sad. And once again, if you're a teenager and you like these new Ghostbusters movies, like find a really cool video game where you get to like rip out people's spines and swallow them vertebrae by vertebrae, like grow some goddamn testicles and enjoy some entertainment with some heat, with some controversy, with some sex appeal, with some violence, like with some ingredients that your parents or your teachers would disapprove of, which was there in the first movie, even though at age 8, I thought it was just this great, fun sci-fi adventure movie. But man, when you rewatch Ghostbusters now, it's just amazing how electric that screenplay is.
I want you inside me.
Go ahead. No, I can't. Sounds like you got at least 2 people in there already.
It's all on the page, and they just got lucky with like the best goddamn cast imaginable. So I will always show up to support all the actors involved in this movie, but goddamn, I guess at some point I should learn my lesson, stop throwing good money after bad, and ignore this fucking shit and look for my entertainment elsewhere. But clearly I'm incapable of learning that lesson, because as soon as I hit, upload on this video, I'm going to go back to watching Roadhouse, which I still need to finish and review later tonight. So I'll be more tired by the time I review Roadhouse, so expect an even more kind of temperamental temper tantrum when I finally get around to that. But my reward at the end of the day for being a good boy will be playing Dragon's Dogma 2 on my PC. So all roads lead to Dragon's Dogma 2. But this video is over. I'm wrapping it up. Hope you liked it. If so, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.